So anyway, welcome to the Naples Mac Friends user group. I am Jeff Bohr. I own a company in town called Naples Mac Help. I've been using Apple computers since 1985. I started doing this full-time, providing mostly training to people in Naples and around businesses in 2004. So this is my 13th year in business providing Apple support. We do have a Facebook page. If anybody uses Facebook, you can search for Naples Mug. And there's a lot of information posted there by some of the board members and some of the group members. So if you're on Facebook and use social media, if you wanted to just check it out, there's a wealth of information and articles there, as well as during the news group, that email that you get from the Yahoo discussion board. So today what we're going to talk about is macOS High Sierra. And this has been a good talking point for quite a while now because of a lot of different opinions and news that you might have heard. So some of the things we'll discuss tonight. Sierra, which is macOS 10.13, has a brand new file system, better graphics and virtual reality hardware and software, good backward compatibility with older Macintosh models. Safari has a new silent mode. Safari has more privacy protection. Safari has persistent website customization. Photos has some advanced editing features and some other nice features that we'll cover. Both Mail and Notes have some good updates. Spotlight has got some new features in its indexing and search capabilities. Icloud file sharing, better security, and some Siri upgrades. So those are the things that we will discuss tonight and cover. If anyone has any questions during the presentation, feel free to.
Put $1 in the kitty.
$30. That's your dance for tonight, George.
$30 you're paying tonight, George.
Are you going to have are we going to be able to send a PDF?
Yeah, this will be in a PDF online after the meeting. So this is the 14th major release of macOS, and it's the successor to macOS Sierra. So a lot of times you'll get like Lion and then Mountain Lion, Sierra, High Sierra, and you'll think it's just a little bump. Well, High Sierra is not as little of a bump as some of them have been, and we'll cover a lot of that. So as with Snow Leopard, Mountain Lion, and El Capitan, the name alludes to its status as a refinement of its predecessor. We'll see that a lot of these features are well placed. So first of all, the High Sierra file operating system. The Apple file system has features that are going to make it scalable from the watch that you might wear on your wrist to the Mac Pro that has 128 gigabytes of memory. So the nice thing about the current file system that we're going to discuss more in just a moment is that it can run on all the devices. So all the devices are going to have this in common. And it can run from the smallest device that's on your wrist to the biggest desktop that you can buy. So a lot of this stuff is technical, but basically, by going to the Apple file system, the APFS file system, the big numbers to pay attention to are the 18 quintillion number compared to the existing file system, which is the HFS Plus, which can only go up to 4 billion objects. So the Apple file system can hold a lot more data in the same amount of space than its predecessors. The time stamping. So when you work on a document or a file or for programmers, HFS, the current timestamps are only accurate to 1 second. The new Apple file system can track to a nanosecond, which is 1 billionth of a second. So where this comes into play is if there's a power outage, those nanoseconds are what matters, and it's got some built-in recovery tools to make use of this fine-tuning of the time. Also, there's built-in crash protection so that it's keeping the file journals and the background processes kind of synchronized, so if there is a power outage, it can catch up from the snapshots that it's taken. So this is kind of technical stuff, but you can read more into it. So the difference between the HFS is you'll see on the right, there's spaces of data, which is the green at the top, and then you've got sparse zeros, which don't occupy space but take up space. It reserves that space for the file structure. So the logical file size you see in the second image there, it'll reserve space that it doesn't need in order to save the file without compression or anything. So with the Apple file system, they can actually get rid of the dead space. So it makes a lot more use of the space on the file, on the drive itself. Now where this comes into play is, so far the Apple file system is designed to work on flash drives. So your solid state drives that are in your iPhones, your iPads, your new laptops, and that are options on the big iMacs. It's a lot more suited for those because of the compression that it can do and store more in a smaller place. However, Apple is releasing an update to High Sierra soon that will let you use this file system on an existing hard drive or one of the Fusion drives that has a combination of a solid state and a regular hard drive. I've personally installed a beta of High Sierra on my iMac, which does have a Fusion drive, and I've had no issues with the new Apple file system. Yes, sir.
Are you saying we have to wait for the next release in order to use disk drives larger than 4 terabytes for disk utility has problems now?
It's not the size. From what I gathered today when I was doing some last minute research, they haven't officially said that they haven't released it yet for like the Fusion drives, but it'll probably be in an update that comes in the next days or a week or two, I think.
But are you using the current one or a beta release of the future one?
I'm using a beta release of probably the one that's going to be out to the public in a week or so, I would guess.
Okay.
Because I know that the numbers are there with people adopting already. So I think that it's probably imminent, and I haven't had any issues at all with any of the software I've used or anything. And we'll get a little deeper into some of the specific softwares to watch out for. So again, in the standard HFS disks, you can see graphically how there's kind of wasted space on the volumes that is not evident with the Apple, the APFS, the Apple file system represented at the bottom. Encryption improvements. So right now you have File Vault, which you can encrypt your entire disk, which is protected by an encryption key that you're told to keep in a safe place, as well as your administrator password for the computer. And you can have different levels of encryption with High Sierra. So you can have no encryption, single key encryption, and multiple key encryption with person or per key files and other keys for sensitive metadata. So since all this is part of APFS, the Apple file system, this encryption is going to trickle down to all the devices. The watches, the iPads, the phones. You can have different levels of encryption or no encryption at all. Another thing, fast directory sizing. If you ever, yes, sir.
Jeff, back on the sizing graph that you had up there. So when they finally get that up and going on my iMac, does that mean that where it says I've used 800 gigabytes of my 1 terabyte drive, that all of a sudden it's going to say I've only used 200?
I don't think, from what I've read, I don't think it's going to shrink that down that much, but it will probably go down a little bit when it reorganizes everything.
So not as much as the graph indicates.
Right, and I don't know, for example, how much free space those top ones would have. I mean, I don't know if that's, well, it's to scale because the green areas are the same.
Right.
But I don't know how much, when you like get info on a disk, how much of it is actually that free space that's reserved. Yes, sir.
What Apple told me is that anything that's already been done is done, so any new files you would do would be under the new file system. So it won't change old stuff, just new stuff.
Oh, see, I didn't know that, but I'll look into it because I know on the phones, one way that Apple has tested the APFS already was last year. They downloaded this as a regular overnight update to every iPhone and iOS device in the world, and no one even knew it. You know, your iPhones and your iPads were converted to APFS, and they didn't even tell us, and there were no uproar, no issues. So it's a pretty stable file system that's designed for the future, really. Yes, sir.
The reason why I know this and where it came up is I have a new PowerBook, and it's on the new file system because it's a solid state memory, and I have an iMac with a Fusion drive, and I was concerned about compatibility, and that's when they explained to me how this all works and what's happening and what will happen.
Yeah, some of the files, and we'll get into especially photos, there are some compatibility issues with like the new way photos are handled and the way that they were handled on HFS. But like the directory sizing, if you ever had to, wanted to get info on a file, an external drive, or a movie on your desktop, and you click Get Info, and then you wait for the size to populate, and sometimes it seems like a couple of minutes. Well, with the APFS, as soon as you open the Get Info window, the sizes are there. The item counts are there. You know, if it's a nested folder with 600,000 items, it'll tell you instantly. So I haven't seen it delay at all with any of the directory services. So Metal 2 is Apple's hardware accelerated graphics and computer application programming interface. I have a typo there. Bringing better graphics and machine learning capabilities. So most of the stuff right now is on your iOS. If you've played with any of the virtual reality or augmented reality apps where you can use your phone to measure a distance or place objects in a room using the phone camera, and that will work on that's an iOS 11 feature where you can do these augmented reality type tasks and place furniture on a stage like this, or measure a distance on the floor or a tile or something. So a lot of this stuff is background, but they use it's more on iPhones and iOS right now. But now the computers are going to have the software with this file system, and with compatible hardware, they're going to be able to do a lot more rendering and 3D graphics and augmented reality stuff. So this is more seen right now for games and such on the iOS. And even when I looked at a list of Mac programs that really took advantage of this Metal 2, it was all like Gods of War and Minecraft. So it's mostly games and entertainment now, but the potential for manipulating graphics and stuff is a lot better with the Metal 2. Backward compatibility. If your Mac could handle Sierra, it can handle High Sierra. So these are the different models of computers that can handle High Sierra. So the recommended, if you have a hardware that's on this list, and you have at least 2 gigabytes of memory, and I think 8 gigabytes of hard drive space, you can install Sierra on any of these machines.
Today we're going to be showing you the best hidden features.
So have you ever opened up a web page like that and something starts playing and you don't even know where it is? So in High Sierra, by default, Safari automatically mutes those autoplay videos. So that will not happen anymore, what just happened here, because sometimes you'll be, especially if you're in a quiet room and you open a new tab, and all of a sudden something like that happens. It's kind of annoying and it can scare you. So by default, Safari automatically mutes autoplay videos.
Today we're going to be showing you
So that won't happen. So if you control click on the website address bar, you'll also get more options for controlling specific websites. So you'll get this on every website that you visit. You'll have options to customize that when you go to theverge.com or consumerreports.com, yes, you want things to play. Use reader when available. So if you check that, it will always open that page in a reader view. You have options for autoplay. So stop media with sound is the default, so nothing's going to jar you like that did. Camera, microphone, and location. If it's Google Maps, you might say always allow location, but you might not want that on Facebook. So you can specify more privacy settings per website directly through Safari when using High Sierra. Now Safari, I think this is Safari 11. This will actually work on Sierra. So you can download this version of Safari even with Sierra with these features without updating to High Sierra. So this version of Safari does work on Sierra.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Before you go into the next little topic. Back to the file system. I deal with some outside type of pieces of equipment that I use, either SD memory cards, micro SDs, or just the memory USB type
Right.
devices. Now, when you take files and you go back and forth, is it going to put it into the APFS on that device, or is it going to put it back into FAT32, FAT16, something like that?
From what I've understood so far, the file transfers, it has a backward compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a Word file or something that's created, it doesn't make it unreadable. It kind of is a hybrid that will be able to be read by older systems.
Yeah.
Because when you're emailing files, even though they were created with High Sierra on the Apple file system, you don't know that everybody in the world, that you're emailing a file to is going to have that system. So the file integrity is kept.
Okay, but I'm talking about going to an external device, like a micro SD card or a USB drive, something like that, that's already in FAT32, like I have a DJI drone.
Right.
And the camera and the photographs and all the information that's on there that I put onto the iMac is in that format. Now that we're going to APFS. Is that going to screw this up, this compatibility, that now they're not going to be able to talk to each other?
From what I've discovered so far, no.
Okay.
It shouldn't, because it has that built in, the backwards compatibility. So the file structure on your machine doesn't affect the file structure on external drives.
Okay.
And they can read and write each other still.
And the same thing would be there for, drives that you have for backups too, because they're in one format, and now all of a sudden there's another format.
Right, and not everybody has, backups,
Right.
solid state drives yet. They're just still expensive,
Right.
so it's not practical. So back to the settings, you'll have more options for allow all autoplay or never autoplay. So you can customize these, and the nice thing is it's per website. So you can do this for Facebook, you can do a separate one for Twitter, you can do a separate one for this and that. So each website can have the different content controls. And then at the bottom, you have camera, location, and microphone, ask, deny, or allow. So you can really tweak Safari to meet your security levels that you're comfortable with. Another way you can get to those, if you control click on the address bar like we just saw, you'll get this menu, but also you can go to the Safari menu, go to settings for this website, and then the same window will pop down in the center of the screen. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. There's 2 ways to access these options. Now under the privacy tab, you have some different options. So if you've ever gone to Amazon and maybe you were looking for a dog or cat bed, and then you'll notice that later you might go to CNN and all of a sudden on the side of the page are ads for dog and cat beds. So that's what cross-site tracking and ask websites not to track me. So if you check those 2, you should see fewer ads related to something you searched for on another site. So I don't think they're not guaranteeing this is 100% accurate yet, but it will diminish that greatly, because some websites are designed to kind of circumvent this, but not a lot. So until the websites come up with some kind of design that this won't work, this will work, and then Apple and the other software manufacturers will have to modify their software to keep this accurate.
You can't do it for all websites at once.
Yeah, the cross-site tracking is not per website. This is either on or off.
Okay. Well, that's in privacy, okay.
Yeah, so this is under the privacy setting in Safari preferences. So unlike some of the controls for audio and location and stuff that you can specify website to website to website, this is kind of all or none. And I don't know anybody that really wants to see those ads of things they were searching for, because it's kind of spooky, actually, you know, when you see that. So that'll give you a little more freedom there. Now, if you control click the reader icon, so when you're looking at a website, you'll notice that that little grid there that's behind this box is the reader menu. So if you've never clicked on that, if you're on a website and there's a bunch of ads and filler all around the page and links and such, if you click on the reader view, that will actually just strip it down to the text and pertinent photos and get rid of all the other stuff, and it brings up a nice white sheet of paper almost that scrolls down where you can read the content of the website without seeing all the junk on the sides.
Jeff,
Yes.
sometimes when you go to the reader view, you lose the ability of the video. They don't work.
Yeah, and there's some pages, the reader view, sometimes you'll see the pages where you have slideshows. And if you click the reader view, it'll show you all the slides on one page, and you don't have to go from, you know, page 1 to 2 to 3. But sometimes it doesn't work. So I think it's the website design. Like George said, sometimes Reader will strip out videos. It might strip out some content that was pertinent that you can't see, but you can easily toggle it on and off and just check that you're not missing anything. So some websites are designed, I think, not to work with Reader, because websites in general generate income through the advertising, which is why they're free, and we don't have to pay to get the websites. So a lot of websites, I think, are trying to circumvent this so that Reader doesn't do what we'd like it to do, because they wanted people to see the ads and buy things. In Safari Preferences again, if you want to check kind of what you've done with Reader and which sites you might want it on, you can go to the Websites tab at the top, and you will then see where you've turned Reader on and off on the pages that you have open. So if you have a bunch of tabs open and you wanted to multi-choose Show Reader on Wikipedia and Macworld and cultofmac.com, you could go here and toggle it on, and then this stays with those websites. So whenever you open cultofmac.com, it will always present the articles in Reader View. Now, if you go to a page in Reader View, sometimes you won't have links to other articles that are pertinent that might be on the side of that article along with the ads. So just know that you can toggle it on with that little icon in the address bar. Yes, sir.
There was a previous slide that showed an option to block cookies, to block all cookies, right there. Do you recommend that? And there was also a choice to clean the cache, C-A-C-H-E, periodically, which clears the cookies.
Yeah, the Manage Website button will take you to a window. If you click that, it shows all the websites that have left cookies. And if you have never done that, you'll probably see about 3,000 or 4,000 items there. It's kind of scary, but that's what, if you've got a brand new computer with no history on it or anything, and you prevented cross-site tracking and those two boxes were checked, your cookies would probably be very small and minimal, because these websites are not allowed to place the cookies there. But a lot of times, I personally, the options used to be block things from sites I visit, block all cookies, or block only. There were like 3 options for cookies, and now it's either just block all, because some of these top website tracking buttons have kind of disabled the cookies for those anyway. But you can always go to Manage Website Data. Sometimes if you're having an issue with a website, an airline or a some kind of interactive site, they might say, oh, clear your cache to reset cookies that might be jamming up your web experience. And that's when you go to manage website data. You can delete certain cookies, you can sort them, you can search for them, or you can delete them all. Yes?
Do you clean out the cache routinely? Do you recommend that?
I don't unless I have an issue.
Okay.
Like I do some WordPress stuff now and then, and a lot of times if I'm designing something and it's not working right, I go there and clean that out because it'll store settings that I don't need anymore. So if you're having an issue, I would click it, but I would bet that probably well over half of people never even have to click that button, unless someone told them to. So I don't check it on any regular basis or anything unless I'm having some kind of issue.
So Jeff, a lot of times if you have a problem like with a subscription, Wall Street Journal,
Yes.
and you have a problem, they want you to clear the cache. Well, you don't want to clear for all the other websites. So is this where you could clear only one domain worth of cookies?
Right. If you go to manage website data, there's a search field like there is in
Right.
a lot of programs. You can type in WSJ or
Yeah.
Wall Street Journal or
Right.
Amazon, and it'll just present those items that you can then clear out.
Thank you.
So another good feature of High Sierra is the editing in the Photos app. So you remember a couple years ago, iPhoto turned into Photos. Photos are a lot more cross-compatible across devices. So if you've installed iOS 11, you've noticed some of the changes already with the editing and such. But basically, all the old photo styles, the JPEG and the H.264 video, have been replaced with this high-efficiency video codec, HEVC, and HEIF, which is pronounced E for photos. So what that does is it allows them to save images with a lot more metadata, a lot more information than regular JPEGs could handle. So a JPEG is basically a flat image, whereas the HEIF files, the HEIF, have multiple layers. They can do raw format. There's a lot more information. I'm not a professional photographer, but I know that it allows you a lot more control over the image, and it actually takes up less room than a JPEG. So you can send these HEIF files to other devices. You can email them. They'll kind of down convert to a JPEG for the recipient, but on your device you're going to have the full quality, kind of multi-layered file. But you can export these, you can send them to other people, and there's not going to be any compatibility issues. So that's a big feature, and that's standard on all the iOS devices now. So new photos that you take with your phone are going to be this HEIF format rather than the traditional JPEG. So because these formats are not supported on Sierra, Macs that are still back on Sierra will be able to use low-resolution derivative files synced via Icloud photo library, but not edit them. All that means is that you can see the files, but they're going to be like flat JPEGs. You can edit them as much as you could edit them before High Sierra, but you couldn't do some of the curves and stuff on those files without having High Sierra. So we'll kind of cover some of those advanced editing features in just a second. So they're backward compatible, and if you sent it to someone, they could edit it as much as they could prior to High Sierra, but they couldn't do any of the new features that are enabled in High Sierra. So as we'll see in a moment, the editing tools have gotten a lot more advanced. Now, one new thing in High Sierra, to edit a photo in the center there, you simply select the photo and click return. It used to be you would select the photo and there'd be a little edit menu at the top, but the edit menu isn't at the top anymore. You just select the photo and hit return, and it brings up the edit screen. So this is a sample of the edit window that you'll get in High Sierra Photos. So So at the top left, there's a little revert to original button. To the left of that, that little icon at the top is between the green dot and the revert button is a before and after. So if you're editing a photo in this window and you want to see what you started with, you can toggle that button, and each time you click it, it changes the image back. But when you release the button, it goes back to your editing. So before High Sierra, over on the right, under the adjust, we just had light, color, black and white, retouch, red eye. Levels, selective color near the bottom are new, and they give you a lot more control over the image. So that you have a lot more, if you ever use aperture, you have a lot more of the controls that you had in aperture in photos now with the curves and the selective color, where you can tweak components of a image. Get back to that. Now another thing you can do is edit photos in external software. So let me jump to this. Under the image menu, there's an edit with menu, and you'll see there listed all of the apps that you could possibly edit that image with that are installed on your computer besides photos. So if you have Pixelmator or Photoshop or Lightroom, you'll see a list of apps. So this is an example. So I clicked on the edit menu at the top. You'll see, or the view menu at the top, edit with. These are all programs listed: Acorn, Analog, Pixelmator, Sharpener Pro, Preview, Shutter Count, Shutbox, Silver Effects, Vivisa. So some of these are even Photoshop plugins at the bottom there. And also, I happen to have Photoshop installed on my computer. Even though it wasn't in the list, you can choose the other option at the bottom. Edit the photo in your software of choice. And then when you finish, you simply close it. And then the bowl of fruit that I edited in Photoshop will be back in Photos. It will then tell you that you open this photo with another application, which was Photoshop. If you edit the item in Photos before you're done in the application, you'll just lose any unsaved adjustments. I was done editing, so I hit yes here. But that's a nice feature if you're used to using some different software and you're comfortable with some other third-party software. You'll be able to access it from within Photos, and the changes will pop right back into Photos. So another new feature in Photos is the persistent sidebar. It used to be you could turn that sidebar on and off under the View menu. You could show or hide the sidebar. Now the sidebar for Photos is always on the left, and you can resize it. So if you hover over the dividing line, you can make the sidebar larger or smaller, but it will always be there on the side. Now at the top of the sidebar, it's been organized into sections. So the library section contains these different views of your library that you may have noticed on your iOS devices already, including memories, favorites, people, places, imports, and recently deleted. Now a nice feature, all the photos you've imported, it used to be you just see the last import and nothing else. Now the import is organized chronologically. So you can see what you did yesterday, you can see what you did last Tuesday, you can see what you did on June 5th and March 15th. So you can review your imports in a timeline rather than just being limited to the last batch you imported. So if you imported pictures today, that was all that was here prior. But now you can go back in time for your imports and review them.
What is memories?
Memories is,
When you eat too
I'll
much.
cover that up here. Let's see. Memories are, here we are. Like we went to Wiki Wachi, Florida with the kids this summer. When I got back, I took a lot of pictures with my iPhone. Apple gave me a little notification at the top and said, you have a new memory. And then what they do is they put together a little slideshow because they know somehow that these pictures were a little vacation. And then they put a little soundtrack to it. And then you can play it, you can save it, you can export it. So it's usually around an event or a certain time frame or certain people, because they can recognize people now. So you'll get these memories that pop up, and you'll be able to relive little events that have happened in your life.
Jeff, I think you can also make your own memories.
Right.
You can create memories,
Yeah.
and you can also edit memories. So like if you have a family reunion or something, you have a lot of pictures from it, but then there's a screenshot of some Dropbox anomaly that you saw, you may notice that it throws that Dropbox screenshot into your family reunion because it was taken during that time you were there. So you can easily just remove pictures and add pictures to a memory in the interface. So some other things in the sidebar, you'll have a media types section that you can hide or toggle with the little arrow next to media types, which contains all the things that you might have seen on your iOS device: selfies, live photos, portraits, long exposure, panoramas, time-lapse, slow motion bursts, screenshots, and animated. And then at the bottom, under My Albums, is where you'll see all the existing albums that you've created over the time with iPhoto that got transferred over. So My Albums is going to be everything that you've organized up to this point will be bundled into that bottom folder, and that'll drop down. Yes, sir.
I not to bore you, but I do a lot of camera stuff, and I found out by mistake there's another thing it does. You were talking about the, if you go back, if you can just go back one, where you have, see, under the imports, what it does is if you take and let's say you have an iPad and you plug your camera into the iPad, it automatically recognizes your camera and it'll start downloading the pictures to the iPad, and then it comes up and pops up one more file that will show you the imports from the camera as a separate folder.
And I think, yeah, well, to the left of this, let me see if I showed that. Yeah, that's what you'll see for the, I'll cover that in just a second because I've reviewed that process. But one of the neat things is when you select photos, say you're going randomly through and you're holding the command key and you're picking this one and this one and this one, and you've got 16 photos selected, you'll now see it at the top, and it'll tell you you now have 3 photos or 13 photos selected. You can then drag that little icon, and I tried to get a screenshot of this, but it didn't work. But if you click on that little picture of the sky there and drag it, you could drag it to your desktop, you could drag it to another album in the sidebar, you could drag it to mail, and it will, that's a way to get all those photos to another place. You don't have to drag the 13 photos, any of those. You can just drag that little icon. You can rotate them. You can favorite them there. So that's a feature that is new. So no matter how many you have selected, it'll show on the little icon. This is in the top right of the window. And then you can drag that little icon to place the photo somewhere else. Now another thing you can do now, when you're bringing in a device, in an iPhone or an iPad, so this is the name of my phone, Network Error Restart Modem, and it already imported 17,000 items. You can check the box to say that every time you plug this in, and that could be a camera card, it could be an iPad, it could be any device that has images on it, you can open photos, and now you have a choice to import them directly to an existing album, or a new album, or just a general library. So below this was a list of all my albums. But you don't, when you bring in photos now, you have the option of just, it's not just last import, and then you have to drag them to a new album or go to File, New Album. Now, before you hit the import button, you can select where the destination is that you want these photos to go. So that saves a few steps with that feature. So this tells a little bit more about memories. So Apple has increased the ways they look for memories. So they've mentioned that some of the ones are for pets, kids, hiking, diving, winter sports, nights out, and meals with friends. So this is where the AR and the smart processing and the computer-aided learning takes place, is in something like memories. Because this is, I took my kids to Vineyard Park, and I took pictures of them on the swing sets and playing. And then it made a little memory for that, Took pictures of my son for Halloween 3 years ago. That became a memory. Pictures from 2005, and it will actually go back. It doesn't just happen with things you've taken since this came out. You don't go back and find memories from, as long as you've had photos on your phone. So that's pretty neat, and it will try to pick the best image, like one where nobody's eyes are closed. So this is kind of the magic of the software that really shows here. Yes?
On the item that you had beforehand about being able to select where you wanted to import something,
Yes.
would that work on, for example, an external hard drive?
Anywhere that, anything that was compatible with photos, like an external hard drive, you might have to import them, but then you would get this option.
What, I had an HP, Microsoft, and I kept all my pictures on an external hard drive. I've now gone over full Apple, and I haven't imported my pictures into my Mac because someone told me that if I did, they would get all jumbled up, whereas I have them chronologically on the drive. So what I was wondering was if I clicked on 2002 on my external drive, could I then import that as a new album 2002 so I wouldn't have them just dispersed?
If you go to File, Import, and I can test this before we leave, I would believe you'll get that option. So in Photos, when you connect a device that has pictures, like a camera card or a camera or a device, a handheld device, this window will kind of pop up, and you'll see these items in the left, like that, devices, a camera card or an older iPhone will be on the left. So a hard drive wouldn't really show up there, but I think if you went to File, Import, and we can run through a test and see if it gives you the same options. But since imports are also organized now by date, you could actually, bring in a batch and then bring in another batch, and it separates them by import by date. So now that your imports are kind of searchable and reviewable, I think you can import them all and then easily identify them because they won't all be jumbled together. Each import
like 2002
will have its own entry. And you might have to name it because depending on the camera, it may not know that they're 2002 except for your label. But
Thank you.
absolutely. So High Sierra has some new features in Notes, and you might have also seen these in iOS 11. You can pin notes, which if you have hundreds and hundreds of notes over the years, pin notes simply puts them at the top of the list. And you can insert tables into notes. So if you want to do some little graph or a miniature spreadsheet in a note, you can do that in High Sierra. So to pin a note, you find the note you want, you right-click on it, and you choose Pin Note. That's seen in the little pop-up there. You can also lock the note, which will then prompt you to enter a password to protect that note, that then when you tap on it to review it later, you'll have to enter that password or passcode to open the note up. So those are two new options. To add a table to a note, you'll see that little, in the top photo there, little add a table button. It looks like a little grid to the right of the padlock. That's how you add a table. And then it'll drop in a little 2-row, 2-column table, you can control click or right click on the little icon to the left of the cursor at the top when there's a little bar there with 3 dots. And then you can add a row before, after, you can delete a row. If you're in a row and you go from Monday to Tuesday and you want to add another one over to the right for Wednesday, you can just hit the tab key or right click on the little control box. So it's easy to get a little grid in Notes now if you wanted to do some kind of calendar or something. That's an option that wasn't there before. Spotlight. So if you ever use Spotlight to find a file or a folder or an email, you can now type in a flight number, and it will actually show you a live view of where the flight is currently, what gates, if it's on time, if it will arrive, what time it, this one happened to be in the air. It was arriving early to Fort Myers from Atlanta. So you don't have to, go to Google and search Delta's website for this stuff anymore. You can just type the flight number, Delta 1136, into Spotlight, and you'll get a live update on what the status is. Now, mail. They revamped the search process for mail. So what you'll see now is when you used to search mail and you type in Jerry, it'll show you Jerry Brown, all the different Jerrys you knew. Now it'll show you top hits based on, you'll see a little section that says top hits when you're doing a search. And that will be based on not only people that they have the same name, but also the people that you've responded to the most will be at the top, because it thinks those may be more relevant. If you're replying to this Jerry rather than that Jerry, it'll put those in the top hits kind of above the general search results. So they're becoming a lot more intuitive about trying to present the information they think that you're looking for when you do these searches and stuff. So that's a feature of Mail that is a little different. Mail now has a split view mode, which means that if you're using full screen mode on your laptop or desktop, so if you're in the full screen mode and you start to type a new message, it'll actually move the new message over to the right as shown here, but you'll still be able to keep an eye on your inbox while you compose. So this only works while you're in full screen mode, but if you start a new message in full screen mode, it will default to a split view where you can still see your inbox, whereas before it just popped up a window right on top of your inbox, and if you wanted to see something behind it, you'd have to finagle it around and move it. So that's automatic now when you're running Mail in full screen. It'll split the window to your message that you're composing as well as a message over here, and you can drag and drop text or content between the windows. So if you can scroll through your inbox and find something you want to forward, you just select it and drag it over to the other window that the new message is being composed in.
How do you get into that?
When you just have to be in full screen Mail, and when you click the new message button, it will open into this split view.
How do you get out of it?
You can go to the top. If you put your cursor to the top of the screen to exit full screen, it will then layer the windows on top of each other. So this only happens when you start in full screen and compose a new message.
Send a message.
iCloud file sharing. Now this is something that if you've used Dropbox, you've probably been used to sharing folders and files with people via Dropbox. Well, now iCloud, when you right-click on the document, you'll see a share menu. You can use Mail and AirDrop and the other things you have set up, but you can now add people to a folder if you want to give certain people access. Say it's a project you're working on with 3 other people, and you're all having to modify documents and edit them. Prior to this, you'd probably use something like Dropbox, but now iCloud supports file sharing as well. And then you'll then get to a screen after you add people, you'll be able to give access to only people you invite, or you can toggle that to people that your recipients invite. And you can say permissions. You can either say they can make changes or they can read only. So they can look at it, but they can't change it. Yes, sir?
Is this set only at the file level, or is it also at the folder level?
It's at the folder level and individual files that are in your iCloud drive.
So I can share folders.
You can share folders from your iCloud drive, and you'll be able to give different people different levels of access and read-write capabilities before you send them the invite.
Question.
Yes?
Can they be on a PC?
As long, they can be on a PC, but you have to make sure the files were in a format that their PC could understand. So you'd have to export it as either a Word or a PDF maybe. Okay. If you gave someone access to a folder full of pages files, it doesn't automatically convert them to Word when they open it on their PC. They would see a bunch of gobbledygook.
Yeah.
So you'd have to export them first.
It can't open the folder.
They can open the folder. If you share a folder called, Family Reunion, and there's spreadsheets and documents in there and images, anybody can probably look at the images, but you'd have to make sure to export a version of the spreadsheet in Excel, for people with PCs. So you still have to kind of prep the files if you're going to be sending them to someone that you're not sure of what they're using. Because not everybody uses Macs, so.
Yeah, but they shouldn't be friends with it.
Right, yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of security updates. Anti-phishing. So they've got measures built into Safari that will warn you if they think you're going to a dangerous website. You might have seen this more often. I've been seeing it more often lately, but I went to a site yesterday, and it was some legitimate site, and I knew it, but Safari pops up a warning that says, we think this might not really be whatever, forover.com. Do you want to continue? And you have to hit continue, and then you have to hit, I understand the risk, open the web page. That's an anti-phishing measure that they've taken. Gatekeeper. Gatekeeper is a feature of the Mac App Store. So when you download apps, Apple has tested them all, they've vetted them, they've given them a signed certificate that they're valid. So Gatekeeper makes sure that the apps you get from the App Store are good. By default, your Gatekeeper settings, which are in System Preferences, under the App Store, are to accept apps made by Apple or developers that have passed Apple's vetting process. So you can tune that to only Apple or Ask Me every time. But Gatekeeper is a way to kind of quarantine that's going to make sure you don't get any malicious software on your computer.
Jeff?
Yes?
So on this, then it's going to eliminate, if it's from one of the developers that are safe, it eliminates the message, once you've downloaded a file, then it says, are you sure you want to open this file? Does that get eliminated if it's from one of these good ones?
No, it'll still ask you. Like I downloaded a Dropbox update today, and it said, this software is from an external, non-Apple, vendor. Do you want to open it? So you'll still have to say yes to some of that stuff.
Oh, okay.
But the installation process is protected by Gatekeeper.
Question.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Is the Gatekeeper in the preferences, and you have to go there and set it up? Or
Right, in the App Store pane of System Preferences, there are 3 levels of Gatekeeper access. Like only Apple and approved developers, and I think there's anybody, but that would be the least safe. But you're still going to get asked to open these if they're not from anything that Apple created. So if you have a newer MacBook with the Touch ID, they have that built in. for an extra layer of security. Software updates are always recommended. So there was a software update for iOS the other day that fixed an auto typing issue. If you were typing an I and getting an A in a little box of symbols, that affected some iOS users. So Apple releases updates, and it's a good idea to install the Apple updates when they do it. Privacy. With Safari, with the non-website tracking, the cross-site tracking. They're really getting in front of that.
Were you going to say something about keychain? I interrupted you with my question.
Oh, just that keychain can store your passwords, and they're encrypted, and they're with 256-bit, all the top security. But also, iCloud keychain really doesn't work unless you turn on the two-factor authentication, which means that if you do try to access something in that, you're going to get a prompt from another device that you own for the first time that you've accessed something that's in the keychain to make sure it's you. So if you have a device, Find My iPhone, which is an app that you can put on your iOS devices, or if you go to iCloud.com, you can find a laptop or a phone or a tablet that's missing with Find My iPhone. Using the password assistant, when you're creating a password, you'll notice that when you have to enter a password for a new website, Safari will present something. Mm-hmm. Those are becoming more secure, so you'll notice those are getting a little longer and buried. And then File Vault 2 is an option that is on by default. So when you install High Sierra, there's a screen that pops up with that logo that says File Vault 2 is going to protect your whole disk and it will encrypt this and you'll get a key. It's on by default, so if you don't want that, you have to uncheck it, but there's really no downside to it. It used to be 5 years ago, the first version of File Vault kind of slowed down a lot of the machines, and now it's kind of a background process where it provides real-time encryption without any bad effects for the user experience.
Yeah.
Yes?
And the key to that is the password of the Mac?
Yeah, your administrator password is what enables File Vault, and then they'll also give you a backup key that you're supposed to write down or print or hide somewhere, because File Vault is so secure that if you do forget your administrator password, there's no back door to get it into this. So they also, when you turn on File Vault, they give you an encryption key. And they tell you to write that down or store it somewhere safely, because if you... I had a client once that called me, they hadn't used their laptop in like a year, and they opened it up, they forgot their administrator password. With File Vault on, you can't reset the password with any of the normal methods, like using the terminal like you might be able to. So with File Vault, it all depends on your administrator password by default. So as long as you know that, you shouldn't have a problem with it. It's more secure in case your laptop gets away from you at the airport or something like that. And your Mac stays on the alert. So you'll notice that sometimes you'll get Safari warnings, you'll get internet updates that'll tell you something about security. This is an insecure network, so your computer's kind of always looking out for that stuff. And then sandblocking, blocks malicious code. That's kind of part of Gatekeeper. And what they do is they'll keep programs by default from accessing other programs on your computer. So you'll have to go into system preferences in the privacy pane and say that Dropbox can use your address book, or that Facebook can use location services. So you'll have to kind of turn these on proactively. They're not going to be on by default anymore. So High Sierra is a lot more secure, and if you go to this website, and this will be in the notes that'll be available in a PDF, apple.com/macOS security will tell you about all the nitty-gritty of what they're doing to increase security. And finally, some of the things, the Siri enhancements, you'll notice if you have an iPhone or an iPad, Siri's voice has changed a little bit recently, and it's gotten a little more natural sounding. The same thing has happened to Siri on the Mac, and you can ask it a lot more things and get a good answer than you would before. You could say, show me pictures taken this weekend. Show me pictures taken Saturday night. Open my Dropbox folder. make the screen brighter. So there's a lot more control you have over your computer with Siri, and these are some of the examples.
Question?
Yes?
I used it yesterday for something and I had to go back into preferences and put in my location. This is on the Mac. Is it, I don't usually keep the location on all the time.
And that's why it would ask you, because if it was something you needed, if you were asking Siri where an Italian restaurant was or
Right.
something, location would be relevant. So, but it will prompt you to turn on location at that point if it wasn't on.
Is it good on the Mac to leave it on, or does it matter?
Well, now you have fine tuning. If you can, with High Sierra, you can tell it you can only use location on certain apps.
Okay,
So just review that now and then. Nothing's going to be on by default,
okay.
but you'll have to enable apps availability to location as needed, kind of. Yes?
I'm still on the El Capitan version. Can I upgrade to High Sierra, or do I have to go Sierra first?
From El Capitan, you can upgrade. You can go anything from 10.8, Mountain Lion, I think, or later, you can jump to High Sierra.
Okay, so from El Capitan.
El Capitan can jump to Sierra,
Okay.
as long as your hardware
Right.
is on the list, and if your hardware is compatible. But the software, it can't. It has to be 10.8 or later. You can jump to Sierra.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I had two questions about Dropbox and Quicken 2007. Now, as far as Quicken 2007 goes, if you have that, Quicken 2007 is what they call a 32-bit app. Sierra is a 64-bit architecture, and it can still open 32-bit apps. So Quicken 2007 should be safe with High Sierra, but the next operating system, you probably won't be able to use Quicken 2007 any longer, and that'll be 10.14, which is still unnamed and unannounced. But with High Sierra, and I've read, from what I was able to determine, people that have tried Quicken 2007 and High Sierra have been able to use it. But if you're using Quicken 2007, you should probably consider updating
Yeah.
to a newer version. That's a long time. 10 years old is a long time in software. Now, Dropbox is, if you're a Dropbox user with High Sierra, you'll be able to access your Dropbox folder in the Finder in the left column like you have. But what I've noticed is, and I've tried this today, if you go into Dropbox, after you install Dropbox, you'll have a little Dropbox icon in the Finder window that you could click on a file and say share Dropbox link, copy Dropbox link. So if you're a heavy Dropbox user, I've noticed that menu doesn't populate yet. It said something about no menu available. You can still right click on it and share a link. You can copy the link. The Dropbox menu wasn't working with the two computers I tested it on today. So you can still share the file, but not through the Dropbox shortcut that's in the menu bar. So that's one thing that's still being worked on, I think. Yes, sir.
And also, if you're a heavy Dropbox user like I am, and use Encore, Dropbox Encore for two different Dropboxes, it doesn't work anymore.
The Encore doesn't work anymore?
The Encore app doesn't work like I access my Dropbox and my wife's Dropbox with in the Finder, but I can't find it in the Finder anymore.
Because Dropbox will only let you be signed into one, I think, at a time. But that Encore lets you.
Encore lets you do both, yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't used that, but I think that would be the issue. But I know I had a specific question about Dropbox, and you can still see the files, but you can't use the Dropbox drop-down menu to copy Dropbox links until.
You can't share it. Is that what you're saying?
You can share it through mail. Your share menu is still there. You can send it from message or mail, and it will send a link, but it's not. You can't copy a link and paste it like you could with Dropbox.
In other words, I set up a folder in Dropbox, and I put maybe 200 pictures in it. And then I want to send the link to somebody. I can't do that.
You do it in Dropbox, it's still.
So like, here's my Dropbox
I can do
folder.
it in Dropbox?
Yeah, you can do a Dropbox. So like, here's a Dropbox folder. So like, here's my lecture for today. I can share it in a link through here, but if I click on the Dropbox folder here, see, I can view it on Dropbox.com and copy the link there, but there used to be more options under the Dropbox menu.
I always went to Dropbox.com and shared it from there.
Oh, that hasn't changed. You can still go to Dropbox through the Safari interface, but some of the Dropbox icons that were there were not. This menu used to be a lot larger when you click on the Dropbox menu. With copy Dropbox link, share Dropbox link, you could share it directly from that menu, and that hasn't been updated yet for High Sierra. So that's one thing I wanted to comment on, because I know that there was a specific question about it. So Dropbox still works through your web browser. You can still get to it. You can still share files like you always did there, add people to access the folder. But the little shortcuts that were in the Finder are not there yet. Some reference sites for High Sierra. The macOS/security and the macOS/High Sierra will tell you a lot more information. And the last slide I had here was, a lot of times you'll get messages about this software is going to take 15 minutes to install. I had someone send this in. Look at the time there. So if you get impatient waiting for nothing to download, for this guy. So that's a little discouraging. I think it ended up taking a lot less than this, but that's discouraging.
I don't think we're going to live long enough.
Yeah. Well, I told him I'd have my great-great-grandchildren check on it. It'll be a long. So my advice for High Sierra would be, go for it. I mean, even if you're running Brick in 2007, which you probably shouldn't be, it'll still perform at least for another year. So.
Jeff, there's a lot of hardware incompatibilities yet. I mean, I have scanners that don't work. I have, there's things that don't work yet.
I mean, again, you can check.
Because the hardware guys haven't come up, they haven't put out their support yet.
Was it an older scanner?
Fujitsu IX500, it's not that old, 2 years old.
Yeah, because I use a Canon flatbed scanner, and it didn't have any issues. So if you have some piece of specialized equipment, you can search, is High Sierra compatible with whatever brand of hardware you have, and you'll find people that are saying yay or nay.
If you have a Fusion Mac, should you download the upgrade first and then High Sierra, or how will that work? Which do you do first?
Well, you have to wait. If you can download High Sierra onto a Fusion drive, but it's not going to be the Apple file system, because really the HFS drives can't take advantage of all the features that we discussed. But you can run High Sierra on a Fusion drive now.
Okay, but then when the upgrade comes out,
it'll just enhance some of the features, but you're not going to have the instant Finder info and such.
okay.
Just because that drive is physically different, and it can't process at the rate that a solid state can, for example.
Now, will it automatically decide which file system it's going to use when you download it on the Fusion Mac?
I think when they have the update specifically released for Fusion Macs, I think it'll be a little more, it'll probably do some stuff with the little solid state drive that it doesn't do, but they haven't really announced the process. They just said it's in the works.
When is that going to happen?
I would guess in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Because Sierra came out on the 25th of September, or High Sierra came out on the 25th of September, which was 6 or 7 weeks ago. And they said it'll probably just be an update. I mean, I'll send out a message to the group when I'm aware of it, but they just said it would be soon.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be sooner rather than later, just because of all the people that have the Fusion drives and stuff.
Right.
So should we, I'm confused now, should we go, if we have the the Mac Fusion? Should we wait until we hear from you, or is it?
I would say install it. I mean, I installed it on mine before I even had the beta that I'm running now. And what it can do is you'll be able to get a lot of these features that we talked about, the software enhancements. You're not going to get on any Fusion type drive some of the speed things. And it can't use, compact all the space like a solid state can, but it'll make more effective use of it in ways that they haven't told us yet.
I've installed it on each of my computers, and I have some of the old hard drives and fusions and so forth, and I've noticed no problem. None. So I would go ahead and do it.
How long does it take to do the upgrade to High Sierra, from Sierra? The last time,
I mean, well, depending on your internet connection, the download could take anywhere from 6 to 25 minutes, and then the install takes another 10 or 15.
okay.
Not
We're
long.
not talking a couple hours right now.
No, it's probably like 30 minutes average, I'd say. Maybe 20. I mean, it's not a big file, but depending on your internet.
Is there clicking involved, or can you just do it overnight?
You could start the download, you could click the install button, and then the next thing you're going to see, you're going to have to click a button that says continue. And then after it installs, you'll be prompted to put in your Apple ID password, and then that'll be it.
When I talked to Apple today for something, and I happened to ask them how long it took, and they said it took 45 minutes to install.
Well, they're giving you the worst case scenario, and then you're pleasantly surprised.
What was the worst case?
Maybe
I
that's
was on
what
the phone for 40 minutes before I ever got to talk to anybody.
Yeah, they prepare you for the worst, but then deliver really good, and then you're happy. So,
Anyway, thank you very much.